Hi, this is Chris Day. Thanks for joining in on our Teletown Hall. I'm running for U.S. Congress in the 17th District. I really appreciate you all coming to join us, and we'll be joined by new folks throughout this call. So if you hear me say the same thing twice, I'm not forgetting. I'm just going to try to repeat myself a little bit to make sure everyone who joins a little bit late doesn't miss anything. So again, thank you for joining in. This is a Teletown Hall for the 17th District of New York congressional race. I'm Chris Day, running for that seat. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself now. So I live in Rockland County. The district covers Rockland County all the way and most of Westchester, from White Plains all the way up to Peekskill in Yorktown. I'm a graduate of Rockland Community College, and I went from there. I transferred to Yale University. While I was in college, I did ROTC, which led to me being an Army officer for 4 years. I served for a year in Afghanistan, 2 months in Iraq. I earned a Bronze Star, 17 total awards and decorations, and saw combat in Afghanistan. My final job in the military as a captain was as a senior logistics officer. So I was in charge of moving personnel and equipment and managing balancing budgets. After that, I got out of the military, came back to the lower Hudson Valley. I live over in Rockland now, and I got into Columbia Business School, got my MBA from there, and I work as a vice president at an investment firm in Manhattan, and we mostly invest in Israeli tech company startups. So I want to that's me. I'm running for U.S. Congress now because, frankly, I believe that this country needs a substantial change in the way we do things. We need to really attack those big issues that Washington, D.C. has been ignoring for so long, because if we don't do it now, the next generation might not have the same type of country that we were given. I have a son just started kindergarten this year, and it was my hope that he's able to do better than me, because that's what the American dream really is, after all. It's letting the next generation and putting them in a position to be able to do better than you did. So I decided back in March to run for this seat, to try to provide that independent representation that I feel we're not getting right now, either from our current representative or from D.C. in general, and make sure we can tackle those big issues, get the economy going again, get our budget balanced at the federal level, and deal with our national debt, deal with immigration, and make sure we can preserve all the great things about America that lets us all have a great chance to succeed. So let me tell you a little bit about how this is going to work. Again, I'm Chris Day. I'm running for U.S. Congress. If you have a question, what you need to do is you press 0 on your dial pad. You'll be able to ask any question you might have, and we're going to get it in a queue, so you're not necessarily going to immediately be able to have them answered, but you'll get an order depending on how many people have a question at any given time. So again, you press 0, and that'll let you be able to ask whatever question. Some folks, this is an interesting race because my opponent has a substantial amount of money from outside interests that she's been spending trying to confuse folks about my positions on various things, trying to scare people, really. I know that those mailers have gone out. I've seen them, and it's very unfortunate because they are definitely filled with just, the word lie is thrown around a lot in politics. This is definitely a lie-filled mailer. So there's many claims in it. You see saying that I oppose equal pay for women, saying that I'm trying to take away Social Security or Medicare benefits. These are things that just aren't true and that I've never said. In fact, I said the opposite on many, many occasions. That hasn't stopped these from being sent out, which is quite unfortunate. So, we're going to, again, taking questions. If you want to press 0 to get that question in, and then we'll start with it. I think we have a couple of questions now already, so let's get with the first one.
It's my turn to speak?
Yes, Beatrice. Hi, you have a question for me? I'm suffering?
Yes, I asked, I said, what party are you with?
Great, yes, I'm a Republican. I'm running the Republican line and the conservative line this year.
Well, I have nothing, that I want to ask you. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Goodbye. Okay, we have another question from Bill in Spring Valley. Hold on, Bill, are you there?
Okay, this is Bill. I would just like to ask Chris, is he going to be as forceful and honest as his father when he gets into office. I admire his father very much and his stick-to-itiveness with trying to help out Rockland County with what's wrong with it. So I just hope that he does that, and I hope he'll give me an affirmative answer. Okay?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. Just to explain to the folks in Westchester, last year my father, Ed Day, won the county executive race in Rockland. I was proud to have managed his race for that election. And my dad, he's a good guy, and he's trying to do good things for this county. He's a very honest, straightforward man. I know coming from his son, that might mean anything, but from Bill in Spring Valley, obviously you think so. And I can say that when it comes to that, we're definitely cut from the same cloth. I'm going to be working to deliver independent solutions, to stay on task, and to do the bidding of the people of this district, not the bidding of any outside interests or special interests. We're just going to try to fix things. That's the biggest problem, that this region and this country is having so many challenges, and our current political class just doesn't seem to have the wherewithal to actually attack the issues and stay firm and independent. I've stood up to sniper fire. I'll stand up to people in my party and the other party who are trying to prevent us from getting things done. Bill, does that work for you there?
Yes, and I just wanted to say that I'm very impressed. I got your card in the mail about your past history, and I'm really, really very impressed with it, especially when you have all the kids lined up before you trying to help them out. God bless you.
Thank you, Bill. I really appreciate it. Thanks for asking your question.
Okay.
Thank
you.
We have another question. This one, I believe, is from John in Nyack. John, are you there?
I am here. Thanks for taking my question.
Absolutely. So could you just restate your question for everyone else on the call?
I could. My question is, what's your relationship with the formally adopted budget of the Republican Party proposed by Congressman Paul Ryan and adopted by the Republican Congressional Caucus? And have you or will you specifically repudiate his attacks on Medicare and Social Security?
Yeah, thank you, John, for your question. That's a key component of those false mailers going out. My opponent basically took the Ryan budget, and in the absence of me ever endorsing it, in fact, on many occasions I said I don't support the budget, or at least the entirety of the budget, she decided that she would just say I support the things in that budget that affect Medicare and Social Security. I do not. I don't think it's okay to affect Medicare or Social Security for our retirees or for anyone who's already in the workforce. We need to make sure we preserve the benefits that were promised to people, and we can reform Social Security and Medicare in such a way to make sure it's financially viable for the long term, for future generations, for people in their 20s. We have to make sure it's viable, but it doesn't mean we have to take away any benefits from people who already have it. Those benefits are there and they're covered. The real problems with Social Security and Medicare are in the much longer run, and we don't need to affect benefits of current recipients or soon-to-be recipients. So, no, I do not support the budget in that sense, and I certainly have never endorsed it, and I do not support any effects on Social Security and Medicare benefits. We need to preserve them and make sure that our promises are kept. The problem is that there's some people who don't want to keep the promises because it's not in their philosophy, and there's some people who don't want to make sure our government and economy is working well enough that we can continue to have these sort of benefits. We have to try to move our country forward and get our economy going again, and that way we don't have to worry about the terrible financial crisis that we find ourselves in year after year. Does that answer your question, John?
It answers part of it. I have a follow-up if I'm not taking up too much time.
Sure, go ahead.
My follow-up is, have you in vote or have you on documented record specifically disagreed with Congressman Paul Ryan's plans to redirect Social Security funds to individually controlled private investment accounts?
I can't tell you honestly if it's on my website, but I certainly have publicly said it repeatedly, and I do not. And I've said repeatedly in public, I'm saying it right now, and I've said it in mailers, is that I do not support privatization of Social Security. I do not support cutting benefits. The current system needs to be working for the current people. Their pledges, the pledges are made to them. That's what I'm saying, and that's my position. It's not going to change, and it hasn't changed. And frankly, in the absence of someone endorsing something, to assume they support something, that's not really fair. And I certainly have, again, in public, repeatedly repudiated that aspect of the budget.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, John. So we have another call. Oh, and I want to remind you all out there, those of you especially just joined, if you want to ask questions, press 0, and you'll be able to get in our line. There's a few people lined up, so don't be worried if there's a wait to ask questions. Again, press 0. You'll be able to ask questions. They'll pop up on the screen we have, and we'll pull you up as soon as we get a chance. So now we have a call from Mary Ann in Congers. Mary Ann, are you with us there?
Yes, I am. I'm wondering what. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'm wondering what the congressmen and everybody, Democrats and Republicans, are doing about immigration. When my grandfather came here, he had to go through Ellis Island, and he wasn't put on public assistance or anything. He had to be sponsored, which he was sponsored by his uncle, which is my father's uncle, and he lived with them. And he became a U.S. citizen within a year. Now, you got people coming to this country, and they get on welfare, they get free housing, free everything, and the taxpayers are paying for all this stuff for them, and they never become U.S. citizens. So I'm wondering, why ain't it like it used to be? So my taxes would go down, not up. You know what I'm saying? These.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for your question. It's the immigration system in this country is completely broken, and it has been for quite some time. There's certain people on one side of the political spectrum who are just trying to keep things wide open for their own motivations or philosophy, and there are other folks who aren't willing to necessarily compromise and fix the legal immigration side of things. I think that we need to make sure our borders are secure. We need to make sure we know who is coming into this country, and that when they come in, both for their safety and for our safety, for our economy, for our defense, and for the safety of people coming in. People who are coming into this country illegally are often taken advantage of, both in terms of the work they do and in terms of actually getting in. They're abused by human smugglers on their way into the country, whether it's through our ports or through the borders. We need to secure those borders, but there's also a problem with our legal immigration system. We're educating people at great schools, and when I was at Columbia, I had a lot of foreign students there, and they were getting educated on visas, and then the risk was that if they didn't get a visa for a work visa, they would be sent back to their home country. Now that's a mistake to train someone and then send them to another country. So we need to fix those sort of things too. Make sure the process is fair, is balanced, and that we have we don't have an excess number. We don't have an inability for immigrants to come here, but we are making sure that they're here legally and properly and vetted before they do come into the country. Does that help, Miriam?
No, I don't think they should be getting welfare. I think they should be sponsored by a family. If they're not sponsored, they're not entitled to anything in the United States because the taxpayers are paying for it. And, the citizens here are paying for them. They're not paying their own way. And they're not becoming citizens either. Because I had a girl laugh at me at work and tell me, your kids have to go to war. My kids don't have to because they're not citizens. Why should my kids die for this country and her son's here living and not dying for this country?
Yeah, again, the problem with that is the illegal immigration aspect of it. And we should not be having people come to this country to live off of our benefit systems. They shouldn't. That's not how it should work. We should have people who want to work hard, who want to contribute to our economy and be part of America, and not just live in America. They should be coming here and becoming a part of our society, and they should be doing it through legal methods. The reason why that woman or other people are able to get benefits and then not help society also, or because the immigration system is totally broken and because the borders are not secure. If we do both of those things, we'll be able to deal with that. So, again, thank you, Marianne. I do appreciate it. We have a bunch of other questions, so thanks for your time. We're going to move on to I got a little announcement to make for you here. We are actually right now we're conducting a live and anonymous, importantly, it's an anonymous poll. If the election were held today, I want to know who you would vote for. If you want to on your dial pads there, you press 7 for me, Chris Day, 8 for Nita Lowy, and 9 if you're undecided. Again, if the election was held today, anonymous poll, press 7 for Chris Day, the guy you're speaking with right now, press 8 for Nita Lowy, press 9 if you are undecided. So in the meantime, we have another question. This is going to be Mary from Nyack. Mary, go ahead.
Yes. First, I have a comment to make. I don't vote for anybody who throws mud, and the Democrats are becoming professional at doing it. I will not vote for any Democrat this time, and I'm an independent, so I go either way, whoever I think is good. But also, Chris, my question, when will you do something about decreasing taxes, especially for seniors? We haven't had children in school for years. I'm sure you've heard this before, and we get all this rhetoric back about what should be done and should be done, but nobody's doing it. Why can't we get a break? We've been here all our life, paid taxes for many, many, many years, and now we should be getting a break. So, when are you going to do something for us?
Yeah, I agree with you. The thing with this area of the country is it's one of the most highly property taxed areas, and that really puts the squeeze on seniors because you have a home, but you don't have any income coming from that home. It's just an asset. In the federal level, I think there needs to be a recognition that the federal government is pushing costs down to local governments, and the local governments are making people pay more money. And it can't just be, we're going to tell the local government what to do or tell the state what to do and not fund it properly. We need to make sure that, this area, the cost of living is so high, yet you're taxed on your income at the federal level as if $50,000 here is worth the same as $50,000 in Oklahoma. I actually have a house I'm still stuck with in North Carolina from the 2008 housing crash. It's rented out, fortunately, but I bought that house for $154,000. Over here, it would cost probably $400,000. It tells you the cost associated with living in this area for the taxes to not be scaled in some way to account for cost of living is unacceptable. I think that the federal government needs to recognize the potential for deductions of property taxes, those sort of things, and the local governments need to look at other ways of getting their funding than just overtaxing people who have homes because, the seniors in this area, they want to stay in their homes, and I understand that. I want to stay in my home too, and to force them out because of costs, because the government keeps taking and taking and taking, is not the way it's supposed to be. The government should be helping people and not taking from them.
We should. Are you going to do something for us?
Absolutely, yes. Once elected, I will. I'm currently the challenger, and my intent is to make sure that the steps are taken at the federal level to represent this area, which means dealing with regulations and tax rules that are unfair.
I'm going to hold you to your word.
I hope you do. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, now please remember, a reminder, press 0 for Ask Any Questions. And for those of you who are joining later, my name's Chris Day, running for U.S. Congress in the 17th District of New York. Runs from basically White Plains, Harrison area, north to Yorktown and Peekskill, and all of Rockland County. We have another call from Robert in New City. Robert, go ahead.
Hi, Chris. Glad to hear from you. Where do we stand on the chicken slaughterhouse in New Square? We own our houses right in the vicinity. Heard you speak on it in August, but haven't heard anything since.
Sure. Thanks for that question. The chicken slaughterhouse, as Robert alluded to, I spoke against it many months ago. It's essentially, for those of you who aren't familiar with the area, a large poultry processing plant is potentially being built in a very densely normal suburban type neighborhood. It's not healthy, and it's too close to residences, and I'm opposed to it. The problem is it was given actually a state grant to be funded, which is just insane in my mind. And it's also, I was just speaking with Assemblyman Ken Zabrowski, who's a Democrat actually, and he's opposed to it as well. And he said that apparently the slaughterhouse is so large that federal regulators license it, not state. Now, being that I'm running for Congress at the federal level, my intent is that when I get in there to be able to push these regulators to recognize the dangers of having a slaughterhouse so close to residential areas, because it's not just, we're talking about fumes, we're talking about water runoff, we're talking about trucks filled with chickens going through the residential areas. They don't belong in residential areas, and that needs to be stopped. It's a federal government problem now because of the size of the proposal, And when elected, I intend to do everything in my power to stop that slaughterhouse from being built. All right. Thank you, Robert, for your call. We have another call coming in here. We have a question from Barbara in Blauville. Barbara, go ahead.
Hi. Obamacare is harmful for many Americans, especially the frail and elderly. Do you support efforts to overturn Obamacare? And if so, which plan should replace it? If you do not, how do you propose to protect the frail and elderly as well as small businesses and taxpayers? And thank you for taking my question.
Sure. Thank you, Barbara. And, I've got a personal situation related to this. My wife, at the time she was my fiance, she lost her coverage due to Obamacare, and we had to sit down and try to get her back on the exchange, and it took us months of waiting and gaps in coverage or insurance. Finally, she got her plan, and she wishes she had her old plan. It's not quite what she wants. That's a problem. We need to realize, though, that our entire healthcare system has been broken for a very long time. Obamacare, in my opinion, made it worse. There are aspects of it that are laudable. The idea that we're going to have coverage for pre-existing conditions, and the idea that we're going to let younger folks stay on their parents' plans, given especially the high unemployment rate among youth, makes sense to me. But there's 17,000 total pages to this bill, and we need to have an alternative vision. For me, it's just based on whatever lowers the cost will in turn automatically increase coverage as well. And Obamacare does not do that, and nor did the system beforehand. It's a broken house on a worse foundation is what they did when they passed this bill. So we need to have regulations written that allow for more competition in insurance. There's a reason why, for example, your utility bills are so high, because there's only one company to choose from. You got to get it from O&R over on the Rockland side or from Con Ed over on the Westchester side. The same thing's happening in insurance, because you have 3 or 4 insurance options, and either your plans are being chosen for you by the government saying what has to be in them, or they're being chosen for you because there's not enough choices to pick from. If we make sure that competition is allowed, it'll bring costs down and put the power in the consumer of healthcare's hands, as opposed to putting it in the corporations that actually helped write bills like Obamacare. I want to see that happen. I want to see, in the interim, we've got President Obama as president for 2 more years, and we need to see what we can do as we go forward, one step at a time. I think one of the biggest targets we can hit immediately and get support from Democrats as well as Republicans is eliminating the medical devices tax, which increases directly the cost of health care because it's a tax on something you have to pay for to fix a condition. We can keep doing that sort of thing and fixing it piece by piece, taking out as much as possible and getting in the right direction, because it's already being implemented, it's already in place. We have to try to fix our entire healthcare system and undo the damage done by Obamacare. And I'm proud to have endorsement of the Rockland County Building and Construction Trades Unions, who in one part was because the effect that Obamacare has had on their ability to have plans specific to their specific jobs. They can't compete on contracts anymore because of this. So there are people that are really suffering, and there are people suffering from the costs, and we need to really address that together on both parties down in D.C.
Okay, but for a follow-up, so you do not oppose overturning it. You support amending it.
No, I mean, I support changing the entire system, including Obamacare. I would like to see an alternative, which I'm trying to propose here, to it, and not just say take it out, because frankly, if you take it out, it was bad already before Obamacare. We need to have a vision in mind before we do anything to healthcare, which means moving in the right direction towards more competition and more choice and lower costs in healthcare. And some of the stuff that's going to have to change is stuff that existed before Obamacare, and a lot of it is going to have to change in Obamacare, if not all of it. But, the difference is a focus on the solution for healthcare as opposed to a focus on the just getting it out, getting Obamacare out. If we repealed Obamacare tomorrow and didn't do anything else, we wouldn't be in much better shape anyway. So we need to have a real alternative vision, a free market vision to try to fix this. I'm sorry, I have to move on. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
We have, remember, reminder, press 0 if you have any questions. We have several people waiting in line right now, and we'll try to get to them. We have Kevin from Pearl River. Kevin, can you go ahead with your question, please? Kevin, you there? Okay, no Kevin. So moving on, we have Ray in Valhalla. Ray, you are now live. Go ahead, please ask your question.
If you're looking for the guy in Westchester, Valhalla, that's me. Ray, is that the one?
Absolutely.
Hello? Okay.
Yes, you're there. You're on live.
Right. In terms of thinking about lowering taxes, it's not highly likely with what Albany's forcing us for all these various programs we have to support. But I think if you start thinking outside the box, like creating affordable housing for senior citizens in some of these areas of Westchester where there's a ton of land that can be built upon with a one-bedroom kitchen, on a single level for seniors. This way you create rateables. I think once you start creating rateables of this nature, you can start bringing the cost of the tax level down. Does that ring a bell with you?
Yeah, I think the key is that seniors need to have the option. Yeah, if they want to stay in their homes, we should try to work to have lower taxes. And, you mentioned rateables. One of the key things to do that is getting businesses into this area so that the economy is churning and the taxes are going through that way and not just being sucked off the backs of homeowners. I have a plan to bring in financial sector businesses that will spend their money on Main Street from Peekskill down to Harrison across to Suffern, and make sure we actually have an economy that the businesses are paying taxes to support the sort of government that we would like to have. And I think having affordable housing for seniors is a key thing. There are several different senior developments that I've seen going up throughout the area, and it's important. And the great thing about it is that it's what the folks want. They want to move there, and they want to try to downsize a little bit and get a slightly different type of living experience. I just don't want to see people feel like they have to if they don't want to. We should try to attack it on both ends. So what you're saying absolutely makes sense.
They want to stay.
Not working hard, we shouldn't try to fix the tax situation too.
Not necessarily stay in their home, but stay in the area. That's what I'm thinking of. Affordable housing in Westchester, where they can stay in the area or adjacent counties, and provide a meaningful community place for them to live and their final days, like myself.
Yeah, I agree, and I know there are a few communities like that. You get Jefferson Village up in Yorktown Heights. There's good options. We also have to make sure there's more options, and the more that we have an ability to let those sort of things get built, as the desire of seniors is such, we'll be able to. We have a good business climate to have that happen. We'll be able to make them profitable and be able to make it a viable thing. So thank you, Ray, for your call. We have to move on to the next caller. We have Guy from Pleasantville. Guy, can you please go ahead with your question?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Chris. My question is, you have a defined benefit pension for the congressman. They presently are funding somewhere around a 1% pure interest table when everybody else out here funds at 4% with a GAT table for mortality. When I see a congressman that can retire with $3 million in cash out of a defined benefit plan when he probably should have only been taking about $1 million, the defined benefit plan states a monthly income. That doesn't change no matter which way you fund it. It's just that the congressman can't take the cash and rather than just take the monthly benefit, he can take the cash but at a lower level. Could something be done to change that? That way we won't be underfunded under the pension plan programs that you got with the congressman. You'll be overfunded, and maybe some of that money can come back and offset some of these other costs that we have.
Yeah, thank you. I agree completely. As a challenger, we have incumbent Congresswoman Nita Lowey's been there for 26 years, and the incumbents, honestly, like having their benefits, and I understand why they would. I mean, how are we going to... The question people
we're not changing the benefit. They have the benefit. It's just that the cash out option would be less.
No, I agree. And my point is that we've got to get the incumbent people in Washington to realize that they need to have the same sort of benefits that other people have. They shouldn't have special treatment. If they've given themselves special treatment in health care, they've given themselves special treatment now in retirements in terms of their pay is already high. We need to make sure that we reform it, and I do think it's something that needs to be done. Absolutely, I agree with you. And
it would be a first step anyway for them, to take So maybe they can go to a 401k and pay for their own benefits.
Yeah, and I think a good way to deal with this overall would be to implement term limits. When people become professional congressmen for 26 years or even longer in some cases, they start to look at themselves as that's their career. I don't believe Congress should be a career. I think if term limits are good enough for the president, it should be good enough for congressmen, for senators, and for state senators, and all the way down.
Well, the vesting schedule is a 6-year schedule. They have a 6-year term. If you were to change it to 0 for 2 and 20% for the next 5, so make it a 7-year vesting schedule, so that if they don't get reelected, they lose 20% of their benefit. That way, they'll do the job that they have to do for us out here if they know they're going to lose 20% of their benefit if they don't get reelected.
I agree. The problem is getting these incumbents to do that, and there's a divide in America right now between the political class and everyone else, and we need to fix that, and that's what I'm trying to get done here. And your ideas are definitely solid ones to try to push that. And when I get to D.C., that's the sort of thing I'll be lobbying for, to try to get the other members to realize that they need to make these reforms. I thank you, Guy. I appreciate your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so we haven't. I want to remind everyone, if you press 0, you will be able to ask any questions. And for those of you who just jumped on the call, my name's Chris Day. I am running for U.S. Congress in the 17th District against Nita Lowey. You've probably seen some attack mailers from her, basically making up things about my positions on Social Security, Medicare, that sort of thing. I believe in supporting those programs and not cutting benefits in any way, shape, or form for retirees. And I also plan on delivering my military experience, my private sector experience to success for all of us here in the 17th District down in D.C. So we're going to move on to our next question. We have Mr. Thompson from White Plains. Mr. Thompson, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Mr. Thompson. I'm calling regarding the crisis that we're having in this school. If you get elected or get this office, can you make sure we put back prayer in the school?
Put back prayer in the school, you mean?
Yeah, in the classroom.
I think that people have a right to pray in clubs if they should so desire. I don't necessarily think a public school should have forced prayer, but if anyone
we're not talking forced prayer. What we're saying, why when we have a disaster we are calling on the church to pray? I think it's like having an insurance in your car. You have it before you have the accident. And if the Word of God is being taught to the student, they would realize that when they read God's Word, thou shalt not kill, they wouldn't even think, if they even think of that, they would say, no, I can't go over that, I can't cross that.
Oh, thank you. And obviously, religion is a key part of our lives, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, this whole area. It's a moral grounding for many people, and the free exercise thereof by students and adults should always be protected. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I appreciate the call. We're going to go to who we have here, John in Spring Valley. John, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for taking my call. I'd like to know what your feelings are as far as gun control as it pertains to the Second Amendment. And as a New York resident, do you think that the New York SAFE Act should be repealed?
Sure. Thank you. I think that I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe that we have a right to bear arms in this country. I think it's just as important as our First Amendment. We do need to have protections to make sure, just like you can't yell fire in a crowded building and claim First Amendment rights, I think that you need to have some restrictions on to make sure that the guns aren't in the wrong hands. There needs to be background checks. There needs to be waiting periods. You shouldn't let the mentally ill get weapons or criminals get weapons. There need to be some restrictions on magazine sizes, just not as much as in the SAFE Act. I think the SAFE Act's biggest flaw is that it was written in the dead of night by people who don't really know much about guns. As a military officer, I'm fairly well versed, I like to think. Written poorly and written without any input from the public. In fact, it made a bunch of police officers criminals overnight, much less plenty of law-abiding folks. We need to focus on making sure we keep guns out of the wrong hands. SAFE Act doesn't do that. I oppose the SAFE Act generally, but we definitely do need to have safe gun regulations to make sure that people who are not criminals and not mentally ill can have a weapon should they so choose, and the other folks that intend to use it for wrong are not able to have them. That's kind of the key tightrope walk there. Is that good?
As
John,
a follow-up, As a follow-up to that, do you feel that maybe we should revisit the HIPAA laws and possibly look for some type of a change there, so that in light of the incidents that we've had in the past, we can see that the people that are involved in these were obviously had mental problems, which went unnoticed.
I've talked a lot in the mental health community about this. There's a sense in the mental health community that decades ago there was it was too much in terms of forcing people into being into hospitals or confinement. And now the same folks are saying the pendulum swung a little bit too far in the other direction, so that people aren't getting the care they need, and they're just being out on the street, homeless, or not getting the proper treatment. We need to try to get that pendulum back down to the center and make sure that there's at least some sort of mandatory evaluation for people who are going through issues. We don't want to force commit people the way things were done decades ago, but we do want to make sure that people are safe and not a harm to themselves or others before we just turn them loose and potentially cause damage to themselves or to innocent people. So, yeah, I do think that needs to be revisited. And from talking with mental health professionals, they tend to think that as well. So thank you, John. I appreciate your call. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to remind you, once again, we're conducting a live and anonymous poll. The poll is a touch-tone poll on your phone. So the question is, if the election were held today, who would you vote for? You press 7 for me, Chris Day. Press 8 for Nita Lowy. Press 9 if you're undecided. Once again, it's a live and it's anonymous poll, so we won't know who said what. I won't get offended. If the election were held today, who would you vote for? 7 for me. My name is Chris Day, once again. 8 for Nita Lowy. 9 if you're undecided. Go ahead, touch that now, and then we're going to move on to our next question, which is from Marilyn Ellie, I believe. I'm sorry if I missed that there. Over in Cortland.
Yes, I'm right here. Thank you, Chris, for taking my call.
Sure.
My call is in regard to our energy policy in New York State. First of all, I'd like to know if you're in favor of expansion of the Algonquin pipeline, which is a very hot issue in my neighborhood, District 17. And also, are you for moving towards a sustainable, carbon-free, and nuclear-free future energy policy for New York State? So basically, are you in favor of fracking in New York State? Do you feel the Algonquin pipeline should be expanded? And are you for carbon-free, nuclear-free, sustainable, renewable futures?
Thank you for asking. So basically, I'll try to hit all those. To the AIM pipeline, I've attended a lot of hearings, and I listened to Spectra, and I listened to the folks who live in the area, Buchanan and in Yorktown, and Cortland. The pipeline's unacceptable, the expansion. The route that they've chosen and the width of the pipe make it dangerous. And the original pipeline is older, and if it does need replacing, which one might not be surprised for a 55-plus-year-old pipe to need replacing, it should be replaced with the exact same diameter pipe in the exact same area it was. It should not be expanded. We are not, the 17th District is better than just being a thoroughfare for other people's things. We deserve to have business in this area. We deserve to have actual jobs that are long-term. Again, I was endorsed by unions in Rockland, and they want jobs, and I want to get them jobs, but I want it to be jobs that are not just building a pipeline next to an elementary school and then disappear. So I'm opposed to that pipeline, and I believe I have the independence on the issue to deal with it. Going back to the other more general environmental questions you asked, I do support the idea of getting off of our more carbon heavy energy. We have to move to more sustainable stuff. I enjoy having a nice environment for my son to play in. I like having clean water and clean air. We have to do it in a way that doesn't suddenly shock the system and make people unable to afford their electrical bills, obviously, but we need to move gradually in that direction to getting off of all of our carbon-producing fuels. Nuclear power, I'm opposed to I believe that the nuclear power plant of Indian Point needs to be closed. We need to find an alternative to it on the grid. It's just too close to a fault line. It's too close to populated areas. And fracking, I don't want fracking in New York State. I just don't think in this area especially it's something that makes sense. But in terms of regulations, we need to make sure that local areas have final say on these things. That's what's going to help. On all of these, on fracking, on pipelines, that sort of thing. If a local area is able to say, we don't want this coming through our community, as they should be able to, as opposed to an agency coming in and forcing it on them, that's the best way to try to decentralize the efforts and make sure we're stopping things that we don't want our community from coming in without our decision process. And that's the problem with the review process right now for AIM, is it's out of the local community's hands. It should not be. Does that answer your question, Marilyn?
Yes, it does very nicely. Thank you. With very little equivocation. The question that I would put to you then, since you should go back to the local community, what about the local communities that that have ordinances against solar panels on rooftops? What's to be done for there if we want to really integrate rooftop solar into our grid?
Well, I think there are certain local communities making sure that zoning makes sense, obviously, but I think there are certain times that local areas do take a step too far. I mean, whether it's solar panels on a roof or an American flag on a front lawn, I've seen it all in the news. There's a thing called personal freedom, and if someone chooses to put something that's not dangerous on their house, it shouldn't be a matter of your house is the wrong color for this neighborhood, therefore you can't do it. But that's something that needs to be fought out and in the courts that are applicable, because they shouldn't be getting down to that level. Now, thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate your questions. We're going to have to go to who do we have here? We got James from Dobbs Ferry. Go ahead, James. Are you there?
Yes, I am, and I'm hoping you're going to win. It'll be a big upset, and it'll be great for the county. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for your support.
The initial question I had concerns the next 2 years before 2016. How do we make President Obama a true lame duck, as it used to be in the old days? In other words, he's threatening to use executive orders. He has a ream of them on his desk right now, ready to start writing right after the election. We've got to be able to stop that. And I'm just hoping that you and your colleagues will be able to do something about it. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it's the problem I have with what's been going on in Washington. It's a combination. There's been no compromise on either side, and I feel that President Obama has in fact overstepped his authority on many occasions. And the problem is that President Bush did similar things at times too. And if the people in the same party as the president aren't willing to say that's where executive authority ends and this is where legislative authority begins, they're going to regret it the next time the president's in another party, because they'll set the precedent. So, I think part of it is by putting together a proactive agenda that he can say yes or no to and pushing it and trying to reach to success on different issues and accommodation is the best way to avoid it. And we have to also, just generally, try to make sure everyone's following the Constitution throughout. The executive, as frustrated as he might be with Congress, doesn't have a right to just initiate laws on his own, and Congress should be standing up for its own rights. Democrat, Republican, our three-part system of government protects our liberties, and it cannot simply become a one-part system of government. So thank you, James.
Someone mentioned immigration before, and he plans to use the executive order in a strong way on immigration. And I hope you're aware of this, because he's already lining up a couple of million green cards to hand out like postage stamps. So please, I hope you win. It's a hard one because of Lowy, but I hope that you're able to get to the colleagues and to the party that we have to stop this, because, we're right on the cusp of losing America, the way we knew America growing up. And these next 2 years are going to be crucial. And we're going to have to elect somebody in 2 years from now who has a business cup, a Yiddish cup. And we're going to have to get someone who knows how to run the country like a business. You understand what I'm saying?
I agree completely. And, we do it. I am aware of the things we've heard about different plans, and I will make sure that we don't have any sort of blanket amnesty going on there, and we continue to assert the need of this country to get back on its feet. So thank you, James. I appreciate your call.
We're
getting to the point where we're going to have to wrap up now. I want to thank everyone for listening and for everyone who asked questions. Again, my name is Chris Day. I'm a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan. I have private sector experience as a vice president of an investment firm. I'm running for U.S. Congress in the 17th District, and I hope for your support. If you have any more questions of me, if you didn't get a chance to have your question answered, and I apologize to those you already asked, who did try to get the questions in and didn't have time to get to. If you have any questions, you can email me at chrisday@voteforday.com. Chris Day is CHRISDAY @voteforday.com, VOTEFORDAY.com. You can email me directly, answer them personally. The website itself is www.voteforday.com. The election is Tuesday. If you're interested and you like what you've heard, I hope for your support, and I hope you tell all your friends to come out. This is a big year for America. It's one of our last chances, I think, to really turn this area and this country around. So, again, thank you all for calling in. Thank you for listening. And I hope to, the next time we speak, I hope to be representing you in Congress if you do me the honor of your support. So thank you again.